I need you. Give it to me!
I just can't now. I'm not in the mood.
They say Seoul never sleeps. From the 63rd floor of the Ryu family compound, the city sprawls below like a living circuit board, neon veins pulsing with ambition, desperation, and the kind of money that rewrites the rules. But up here, in this fortress of marble and bulletproof glass, the only sound is silence. The dangerous kind. The kind that comes before something breaks. Naomi Carter learned about silence the hard way. 28 years old, 5'7" with dark brown skin that caught the amber city lights like polished mahogany, she'd crossed an ocean and 13 time zones to become invisible. Her single suitcase sat unopened in the corner of a room barely larger than a closet. Luxury by some standards, a cage by others. The lock, she'd noticed immediately, was on the outside. This was her third night in Seoul. Her first night truly understanding what she'd walked into. The placement agency in Atlanta had been sparse with details. Discreet household position, prominent Korean family, $10,000 monthly, no questions asked. When you're running from a man whose love turned to fists, from a restraining order that felt like tissue paper, from a life that had become a trap, you don't ask questions either. You just run, and hope the cage you run into is better than the one you left behind. But Naomi was learning that all cages look different. Some have bars, others have marble floors and city views. The Ryu family revealed themselves in layers, like a wound you kept peeling back to find the infection went deeper than you thought. Ryu Min-seok, the patriarch, 48, 6'1" with shoulders that filled doorways and a presence that emptied rooms. Salt and pepper hair styled with the kind of precision that suggested every detail of his life was controlled, calculated. When he'd first looked at Naomi during her interview, his dark eyes had performed an autopsy. She'd felt him cataloguing her vulnerabilities, her uses, her expiration date. The scar tissue on his right knuckles told stories his expensive suits tried to hide. This was a man who'd built an empire with violence and maintained it with fear. But there was something else. Something Naomi noticed on that third night. Something that made her pause outside his study when she should have kept walking. He was coughing. Not the polite clearing of a throat, but the wet, desperate sound of a body betraying its owner. When the coughing finally stopped, she heard the clink of pill bottles, many of them. Yoon Ji-woo, Min-seok's wife, 44 and carved from ice that had forgotten how to melt. Classical Korean beauty preserved like something in a museum, untouchable, perfect, dead behind the eyes. She moved through the penthouse like a queen in a kingdom she'd stopped caring about. Her traditional hanbok-inspired dresses whispering expensive silk and older money. When she looked at Naomi, it was the way you'd look at furniture, useful, replaceable, beneath notice. You will be invisible, Ji-woo had told her on the first day, her English flawless and cold. You will see nothing, hear nothing. You exist to serve, nothing more. But Ji-woo was wrong. Naomi was already seeing everything. If you're enjoying this story so far, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens when Naomi discovers the family's darkest secrets. And drop a comment below. Do you think Naomi should have run the moment she saw that outside lock? Let me know. Ryu Hyun-woo, 25, the son, and dangerous in a completely different way. 6 feet of lean muscle and devastating good looks, with his father's sharp features softened by youth and styled with modern rebellion. Designer streetwear mixed with traditional elegance, thick black hair that looked effortlessly perfect, and eyes that tracked Naomi's every movement with predatory interest. He never spoke to her directly those first days, but she felt him watching, calculating, waiting for something she didn't yet understand. There was something about the way he looked at his father, not respect, not love. Something colder, something that had been fermenting for years. Ryu Soo-jin, 16, the daughter, currently blonde-haired and angry at a world that had given her everything except the ability to escape it. She lived in her phone, texting secrets and smirking at things no one else could see. At family dinners, she never looked at Min Seok directly. Avoidance, resentment, the body language of someone carrying knowledge that could detonate lives. The fifth chair at the dinner table remained empty. Always empty. A ghost no one acknowledged. On Naomi's third night, exhaustion finally caught up with jet lag. She'd cleaned the formal dining room, served dinner in silence as instructed, cleared plates while the family scattered to their separate territories within the sprawling penthouse. Jiwoo had dismissed her curtly. "You may retire. Be available at 6 a.m. Naomi had nodded, grateful for escape, but as she walked down the long marble hallway toward the servants' wing, she heard voices, low, tense, coming from the master suite. She should have kept walking, should have remembered Jiwoo's warning about being invisible. But the tone of the voices stopped her, not the words, she was too far away for that, but the emotional texture, desperation, pain, the kind of rawness that made you feel like you were intruding just by existing in the same building. Naomi moved closer, not consciously deciding to eavesdrop, but drawn by something she couldn't name. The door to the master suite was partially open, light spilling into the darkened hallway like an invitation she shouldn't accept. And then she heard it. The words that would change everything. "Please." Min Seok's voice. Stripped of all authority, reduced to something heartbreakingly human. "Just one night. I'm not asking as your husband. Not as chairman of anything, just as the man who still loves you. Please, Sirin." Naomi's breath caught. She pressed herself against the wall, heart hammering, knowing she should leave but unable to move. Jiwoo's laugh was like breaking glass. "Love? You want to talk about love now? After years of choosing your empire over me? After shutting me out of every decision, every secret, every piece of yourself that mattered? I was protecting you. You were protecting yourself." Jiwoo's voice cracked, actual emotion bleeding through the ice. "You locked me out, Min Seok. You made me a decoration in your fortress, a trophy wife who wasn't allowed to know the man she married." Silence. Long enough that Naomi thought the conversation might be over. Then Min Seok spoke again, and the vulnerability in his voice made something in Naomi's chest tighten. "I was afraid. Not of my enemies. Not of the violence or the betrayals. I was afraid that if you really saw who I am, what I've done, what I'm capable of, you'd stop loving me. So I hid. I built walls, and I lost you anyway." "You did." Jiwoo's voice was softer now but no less distant. "You lost me the day you decided I was too weak to handle your darkness." "Are we done? Is this marriage over?" The pause that followed felt like the entire world holding its breath. "I don't know," Jiwoo finally said. "I honestly don't know anymore." Naomi heard movement, footsteps approaching the door. She should run, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. Through the partially open door, she could see them now. Min Seok, this powerful, feared man, was on his knees. Actually on his knees in front of his wife. And the sight was so unexpected, so completely at odds with everything Naomi had seen of him, that she couldn't look away. Leave a like if you didn't see that coming. And comment below. Would you give someone like Min Seok a second chance, or is he getting exactly what he deserves? "One night," Min Seok said, his hands reaching for Jiwoo's but not quite touching, asking permission even for that small contact. "Give me one night. Not to fix this. Not to pretend we're not broken. Just to be honest. Completely honest. No walls, no secrets, no power plays. Just you and me and the truth. If after that you want to leave, I'll let you go. I'll sign whatever papers you want. I'll disappear from your life. But please, let me try to be the man I should have been." Jiwoo looked down at him, and Naomi saw something shift in her face. Not forgiveness. Not even softening, but maybe curiosity or exhaustion, or the last dying ember of whatever they'd once been to each other. One night, Jiwoo agreed, her voice careful and controlled, but on my terms. No guards outside the door, no business calls, no interruptions. And if I ask you something, you answer honestly, even if the truth ends us. Especially if the truth ends us. Can you do that? Yes. Then Friday night. We'll see what's left when we strip away all the armor. Jiwoo turned and walked toward her private dressing room. And that's when Naomi saw it. The slight hesitation in her step, the way her hand trembled before she steadied it. Jiwoo wasn't as cold as she pretended. She was just better at hiding the cracks. Min Seok remained on his knees for a long moment after his wife disappeared. Then, slowly, painfully, like a man decades older than 48, he rose to his feet. He turned toward the door and Naomi's heart stopped because for one terrible second she thought he'd seen her, thought she'd been caught witnessing this impossibly private moment. But Min Seok wasn't looking at her. His eyes were fixed on something in the middle distance, something only he could see. Regret, maybe. Or the ghost of who he used to be before power consumed everything else. He walked toward his private study, shoulders heavy with the weight of empires built on blood and marriages broken by silence, and Naomi finally found the ability to move. She fled down the hallway on silent feet, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. In her tiny room with its outside lock, Naomi sat on the edge of her bed and tried to process what she'd just witnessed. The most powerful man she'd ever encountered. A man whose presence made grown men flinch. Had been on his knees begging for love. Not demanding it, not buying it, not commanding it with the authority that moved millions of dollars and ended lives. Begging. And something about that vulnerability, that raw, desperate humanity stripped of all pretense, had cracked something open inside Naomi that she'd spent years keeping locked down. She'd come to Seoul to be invisible, to disappear into service and safety and the comfortable numbness of not mattering to anyone. But she'd just been seen, not physically. Min Seok and Jiwoo had no idea she was there. But she'd seen them, really seen them. And you can't unsee someone's humanity once you've witnessed it naked and desperate and honest. Naomi lay back on her narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, and knew with absolute certainty that her plan to be invisible had just died. In this house of secrets and power and beautiful broken people, she was about to become dangerously, irrevocably visible. And somewhere in the penthouse, in rooms she hadn't yet learned to avoid, other secrets were stirring, other people were watching, other plans were being made. The countdown had begun, though Naomi didn't know it yet. She'd come to Seoul running from one cage. She'd just locked herself into another. The only question now was whether she'd escape it alive, or whether she'd become another ghost haunting the 63rd floor. Another cautionary tale about the price of seeing too much. Some doors, once you walk through them, lock behind you. Naomi Carter had just walked through hers, and the click of that lock echoing through the empty hallway sounded exactly like destiny or damnation. She'd find out which on Friday night. Thursday morning arrived with Seoul's autumn light filtering through bulletproof glass, turning the penthouse into something that looked almost peaceful if you didn't know what lived inside it. Naomi woke at 5 as instructed, her body still confused by the 13-hour time difference, but her mind sharp with the kind of alertness that comes from sleeping in other people's houses, the kind of alertness that keeps you alive. She'd barely slept after witnessing Min Seok's desperate plea. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him on his knees, this man whose presence commanded empires, reduced to begging for one honest night with the woman he'd married. It shouldn't have affected her. She was the help. Invisible. It wasn't her business. But it had affected her, and that was dangerous. Naomi dressed in one of her 3 identical black dresses, the uniform of service, of invisibility, of knowing your place. She tied her natural coils back in a neat, protective style, minimal makeup, Nothing that would draw attention. The small scar above her left eyebrow caught the morning light, a reminder of the last time a powerful man had claimed to love her. Marcus's ring had left that mark. His fists had left others that didn't show. She'd learned to be careful around powerful men and their complications. The penthouse was silent as she moved through it, preparing breakfast according to the detailed instructions Jiwoo had left. Green tea, specific temperature. Rice, particular texture. Banchan, small dishes, arranged just so. Naomi had learned quickly that Jiwoo's perfectionism wasn't about food. It was about control. When you can't control your husband's heart, you control everything else with ruthless precision. As Naomi set the table in the formal dining room, she heard footsteps behind her, light, deliberate, the kind of footsteps that announce themselves by choosing not to hide. "You're up early?" Hyunwoo's voice was low, still rough with sleep but controlled. He stood in the doorway wearing black silk pajama pants and nothing else, and Naomi had to physically force herself not to react. 6 feet of lean muscle, that devastating face softer without its usual calculation, and a tattoo she could just glimpse on his left ribcage. Korean characters she couldn't read but suspected said something about the darkness he carried. "Yes, sir. Mrs. Ryu requires breakfast at 6:30. Naomi kept her voice neutral, professional, her eyes on the table she was setting. "Don't call me sir." He moved closer, and she caught the scent of expensive cologne and something underneath it, something young and reckless and deliberately dangerous. "It makes me feel like my father. And trust me, I'm nothing like my father." There was something in the way he said it, an edge, not respect or love, but something that tasted like old resentment, aged into something harder. "Yes, Mr. Ryu." Hyunwoo. Just Hyunwoo. He was close now, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his skin. "Look at me." "Naomi." The use of her first name made her breath catch. It was too familiar, too intentional. But she obeyed, lifting her eyes to meet his, and immediately understood why he'd insisted. Up close, his beauty was almost overwhelming, but it was his eyes that held her, intense, intelligent, and holding something she recognized because she'd seen it in her own mirror. Calculation. The look of someone playing a longer game than anyone else at the table suspected. "You heard something last night," he said quietly. Not a question, a statement. "You were in the hallway outside their room." Naomi's heart hammered against her ribs, but she kept her face carefully neutral. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do." Hyunwoo smiled, and it transformed his face from beautiful to devastating. "I saw you. I was coming back from the gym. Saw you pressed against the wall outside the master suite, listening to my parents tear each other apart. Don't worry, they didn't notice. They never notice anything that doesn't fit their narrative of how things should be. I wasn't... Don't lie to me, Naomi." His hand came up slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a loose coil of hair behind her ear. His fingers brushed her cheek, and the touch sent electricity down her spine. "I don't respect liars. You heard them. You heard my father beg. And something about that affected you, didn't it? I could see it in your face." She should deny it. Should step back, maintain the professional distance that kept servants safe in powerful houses. But there was something about the way he looked at her, like he could see past every defense she'd ever built, that made lying feel pointless. "He was vulnerable," Naomi said quietly. "I didn't expect that. No one does. That's his greatest weapon. Men fear him because he never shows weakness." Hyunwoo's thumb traced the scar above her eyebrow, so gently she barely felt it. "But you saw it. And now you're dangerous." "Dangerous." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Knowledge is always dangerous, especially in this house." He dropped his hand but didn't step back. "Tell me something. Naomi Carter from Atlanta with the scar above her eye and the secrets in her past. What are you really doing here?" "Working." Try again. Running. Better. His smile widened. From what? From someone who thought love meant ownership. Something flickered in Hyunwoo's eyes. Recognition, maybe. Or kinship. Aren't we all running from that? From people who confused possession with love, control with care? He finally stepped back, giving her space to breathe. My father's about to do something stupid, something vulnerable. Tomorrow night, this one honest night with my mother, he thinks it'll save them. It won't. But it'll change things, break things. And when things break in this house, Naomi, people get hurt. Why are you telling me this? Because I think you're like me. A survivor. And survivors need to recognize each other. He turned to leave, then paused in the doorway. Fair warning. My mother's going to test you. She knows you heard something, even if she doesn't know what. She'll push until you break, or until she decides you're useful. Don't break, Naomi. Be useful instead. It's the only way to survive here. He left as quietly as he'd come, and Naomi stood there with her hands shaking and her heart racing, because she'd just been recruited for something she didn't understand by someone who was either her ally or her destruction, and she had no idea which. Before you find out what happens next, hit that like button if you're as intrigued by Hyunwoo as Naomi is, and comment below, is he trying to help her, or is this all part of some bigger game he's playing? Let me know your theories. The rest of Thursday passed in mounting tension. Min Seok left early for business, meetings Naomi wasn't supposed to know about but could hear in fragments through his study door. Korean words she didn't understand, but tone and urgency she recognized. Money moving, power shifting, the machinery of an empire that ran on blood and fear and carefully balanced alliances. Jiwoo spent the morning in her private wing, emerging only to make small corrections to Naomi's work. The fold of a napkin, the angle of a picture frame. Nothing actually wrong, just Jiwoo reminding her that control extended to every molecule in this house. But there was something else in Jiwoo's gaze now, something sharp and assessing, like she was trying to solve a problem she hadn't fully articulated yet. Around noon, a man Naomi hadn't met before arrived with a medical bag. Dr. Chen Wei, she learned from the brief introduction Jiwoo made, Min Seok's private physician. 38, Chinese-Korean, and startlingly beautiful in an androgynous way that made Naomi do a double-take. 5'8", slender with features so delicate they could belong to either gender, and an air of careful professionalism that suggested someone who'd learned to blend in by being exactly what people expected while hiding who they really were. The chairman's medication, Dr. Chen said in English, nodding politely to Naomi as he passed. His voice was soft, cultured, with just a hint of accent. I'll see myself to his study. But as Dr. Chen walked past, his medical bag shifted, and something fell out. A small package wrapped in brown paper. Naomi bent to pick it up automatically, and that's when she saw it. A costume tail. Silky, detailed, expensive. Definitely not medical equipment. Dr. Chen's face went pale. He snatched the package from her hands with uncharacteristic speed, his professional calm cracking for just a second. That's personal, private. Please forget you saw that. Of course. Doctor. Naomi kept her face neutral, but her mind was racing. A costume tail. Part of something larger, she suspected. Something Dr. Chen clearly didn't want anyone knowing about. He studied her for a long moment, those beautiful ambiguous features arranged in calculation. Then, quietly, You're the new maid. The American. Yes, sir. Be careful in this house, Miss Carter. Everyone has secrets. Everyone has something they'd kill to keep hidden. He glanced down at his medical bag, now securely closed. Even the help. He disappeared into Min Seok's study, and Naomi was left holding the weight of yet another secret in a house that seemed built from them. A powerful mafia boss hiding terminal illness. A wife who'd gone cold after years of exclusion. A son who watched everything with calculating eyes. And now a doctor with unusual private interests he clearly feared exposure of. What else was hiding in this fortress of marble and secrets? And how many of these secrets could Naomi carry before they crushed her? That afternoon, while cleaning the second-floor hallway, Naomi discovered another piece of the puzzle. She'd been dusting the traditional Korean artwork that lined the walls when she heard voices from a room she'd been told was off-limits, a private meeting room used for business. The door was slightly ajar, and through it, Naomi could see two men in dark suits talking in low, urgent tones. She recognized one immediately. Kang Tae-sung, Min Seok's lieutenant. 42, compact and muscular, with an ex-military bearing, buzz cut, and a scar across his left cheek that suggested violence survived. He was always in the penthouse, always professional, always positioned between Min Seok and whatever threat the world presented. The other man was softer, 39, thinning hair, glasses, expensive but conservative suit. Park Jong-hoon, she'd learned, the family accountant. Forgettable face, nervous gestures, the kind of man who disappeared into wallpaper at parties. But what Naomi saw now made her freeze in her dusting. Tae-sung's hand on Jong-hoon's face. Tender, intimate, not professional at all. And Jong-hoon leaning into that touch like a man starving for it. "We can't keep doing this," Jong-hoon was saying, his voice tight with fear. "If she finds out, she already knows." Tae-sung's voice was rough, angry, but his touch remained gentle. "Ji-woo knows everything. That's how she controls us. By knowing what we are and threatening to destroy us with it." "I can't lose you," Jong-hoon's voice cracked. "You're the only real thing in this whole goddamn nightmare." "You won't lose me, but we have to be smarter, more careful. She's looking for weakness right now, anything she can use when—" Tae-sung stopped abruptly, his military instincts sensing something. He turned toward the door, and Naomi barely had time to move before he stepped into the hallway. Their eyes met, just for a second, long enough for Tae-sung to know she'd seen something, long enough for Naomi to see the panic in his eyes before his professional mask slammed back into place. "The meeting room is off limits," he said quietly, his hand resting on his shoulder holster, not threatening, just reminding her it was there. "Mrs. Ryu should have informed you." "She did." "I apologize. I was just cleaning the hallway." Naomi kept her voice steady, her face neutral, even as her heart hammered. "I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything." Tae-sung studied her for a long moment. Behind him, Jong-hoon had disappeared deeper into the room, probably trying not to exist. Finally, Tae-sung nodded slowly. "Good. Keep it that way. For your own safety, Miss Carter. Some knowledge in this house is fatal." He closed the door, and Naomi heard the lock click into place. She finished her dusting on autopilot, her mind spinning. Tae-sung and Jong-hoon. Together, and Ji-woo knew, used it as leverage, as control. What else did Ji-woo know? What other secrets did she weaponize to maintain her Ice Queen dominance in a house where her husband's heart had slipped away? That evening, as Naomi prepared dinner, she found Soo-jin in the kitchen, unusual since the teenager normally avoided any room that required her to acknowledge the help. The 16-year-old was scrolling through her phone, blonde hair falling over her face, school uniform disheveled in that deliberate way teens achieved. "You've been here almost a week," Soo-jin said without looking up from her screen. Her English was perfect, flavored with international school pronunciation. "You've lasted longer than the last 3 maids. I try to stay out of the way. That's the problem. You can't stay out of the way in this house. Everything overlaps. Everyone's watching everyone else." Soo-jin finally looked up, and her eyes, so like Ji-woo's but not yet hardened into ice, were sharp with intelligence beyond her years. "You know what's happening tomorrow night, don't you?" "My parents' little experiment in honesty?" Naomi kept her face neutral. "I don't listen to private conversations." "Liar." But Soo-jin smiled when she said it. "It's okay. I listen to everything. You'd be surprised what people say when they forget a teenager exists." She returned to her phone, fingers flying across the screen. Fair warning, it's not going to fix anything. One night of truth just means all the lies come out at once. And when that happens, she made an exploding gesture with her hands. Boom, everything burns. You sound like you want that to happen. Maybe I do. Sujin's smile turned bitter. Maybe I'm tired of pretending we're a family when we're really just strangers who share DNA and a zip code. She stood, grabbing her phone. Thanks for the warning, new maid. You seem nice. Try not to get killed when this place implodes. She left, and Naomi stood there in the kitchen that cost more than most houses, surrounded by marble and custom appliances and the quiet hum of money, and realized something terrifying. Everyone in this house was waiting for something to break. The Mafia boss begging for love. The Ice Queen holding secrets like weapons. The son watching with calculating eyes. The daughter recording everything. The lieutenant and accountant hiding their truth. The doctor with his private fetishes. Everyone had something to hide. Everyone had something to lose. And tomorrow night, Min Seok and Ji-woo were going to strip away all the armor and face each other with nothing but truth. Naomi had a feeling that when armor came off in a house this sharp, someone was going to bleed. She just hoped it wouldn't be her. But hope, she'd learned in Atlanta, was a dangerous thing. And in Seoul, 63 floors above a city that never slept, hope felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. Tomorrow was Friday, the night of truth. And Naomi Carter, invisible, careful, just trying to survive, was about to learn that in houses built on secrets, truth was the most dangerous weapon of all. Friday arrived like an execution date. The entire penthouse felt different, the air heavier, the silence more deliberate, like the building itself was holding its breath. Naomi woke before her alarm, her body tense with anticipation for something that wasn't even about her. But that was the thing about living in other people's houses, carrying other people's secrets. Their storms became your storms. Their breaking points became your breaking points. She'd spent the night dreaming about Min Seok on his knees, about Ji-woo's ice cracking just enough to show the wound underneath, about Hyun-woo's calculating eyes and Sujin's bitter smile and the way Tae-sung had looked at Jong-hoon like he was both salvation and damnation. About Dr. Chen's panic when that costume tail fell from his medical bag, exposing vulnerabilities he'd worked so hard to hide. Everyone in this house was pretending to be something they weren't. The only difference was some people's masks fit better than others. Min Seok looked like death at breakfast. Not metaphorically, literally. His salt and pepper hair was disheveled, dark circles carved valleys under his eyes, and his hands trembled slightly as he reached for his tea. The tremor was new, or at least newly visible. Whatever illness he was hiding was progressing faster than he wanted anyone to know. Ji-woo noticed. Of course she noticed. She noticed everything. But she said nothing, just watched him over the rim of her own cup with those calculating eyes that had learned to reveal nothing. Clear my schedule for tonight, Min Seok said to Tae-sung, who stood at attention near the dining room entrance. Everything. No calls, no emergencies, no interruptions. Sir, the Busan negotiation will wait. Min Seok's voice had that edge that ended discussions. Tonight, I'm not chairman of anything. I'm just a man trying to save what's left of his marriage. That's more important than money or territory, or whatever the fuck we're fighting over this week. Tae-sung's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Naomi caught something in his eyes as he looked at Min Seok, something that went beyond professional loyalty. Pain, maybe. Or longing. The kind of look you give someone you can't have, watching them fight for someone else. Hyun-woo had been right. Everyone in this house was running from the same thing. People who confused possession with love, control with care, including, apparently, the lieutenant who stood guard over a man he could never touch. The day crawled forward with the inevitability of tragedy. Min Seok spent hours in his study, and Naomi could hear him on the phone conducting business with the desperate efficiency of someone who knew his time was running out. Not just tonight, time in general. 6 months, Dr. Chen had mentioned to Jiwoo when he thought no one was listening. Maybe less. 6 months to build a legacy. 6 months to fix a marriage. 6 months to figure out which truths were worth dying with and which ones needed to be confessed first. Jiwoo spent the afternoon in her private quarters, and when she emerged for dinner, she'd transformed. Not into someone softer, Jiwoo would never be soft, but into someone more real. She wore a simple dress, cream-coloured and elegant, but not elaborate. Her hair was down, falling past her shoulders in a way Naomi had never seen. No makeup beyond the basics, no jewellery except her wedding ring, which Naomi realised with a start she'd never actually seen Jiwoo wear before. She was preparing for honesty, stripping away the armour just like Min Seok had asked. "Clear the penthouse," Jiwoo said to Naomi as dinner ended. Her English was crisp but not unkind. "Everyone out. Tae-sung. Take the night security rotation off-site. Hyunwoo, Soo-jin. I don't care where you go, but be somewhere else until morning." Hyunwoo's eyes flickered with something Naomi couldn't quite read. "You're really doing this?" "We're really doing this," Min Seok said, and there was something almost defiant in his voice. Pride, maybe, or terror disguised as courage. Soo-jin rolled her eyes. "Great. More parental drama. I'll be at Minji's." She grabbed her phone and left without another word, but Naomi caught the way her fingers flew across the screen, texting someone, recording this moment somehow, cataloguing it for future use or future leverage. Hyunwoo stood slowly, his gaze moving from his father to his mother and finally landing on Naomi. "Good luck," he said, though it wasn't clear who he was talking to. "I hope you find whatever truth you're looking for. Just remember, some truths kill you faster than lies ever could." He left, and the warning hung in the air, like smoke. Before you see what happens on this night of truth, smash that like button if you're as nervous as I am about what's going to be revealed. And comment below. Do you think their marriage can survive complete honesty? Or is this just the elegant way to end things? Let me know. Tae-sung was the last to leave, and Naomi saw him hesitate at the door, his hand on the frame, his eyes on Min Seok with that same unreadable expression. Loyalty, longing, loss. Then he was gone, and the penthouse fell into a silence so complete Naomi could hear her own heartbeat. "You as well, Miss Carter," Jiwoo said, not unkindly. "We'll manage on our own tonight." Naomi nodded and began gathering dishes, but Min Seok spoke up. "Wait." He looked at his wife, then back to Naomi. "She should stay. Not in the room, give us privacy, but in the penthouse. In case..." He trailed off, but Naomi understood. In case the tremors got worse. In case his illness betrayed him mid-confession. In case vulnerability turned into physical collapse. Jiwoo studied Naomi for a long moment, those ice-blue eyes seeing more than Naomi wanted them to. "You're the one who was listening outside our door on Tuesday night." It wasn't a question. Naomi's breath caught, but before she could formulate a denial, Jiwoo continued. "I saw your shadow, heard you breathing. I knew someone was there." She tilted her head slightly. "You heard him beg. You heard me refuse. And yet, you didn't gossip. Didn't leverage it, didn't do anything except carry that knowledge quietly." A pause. "Why?" Naomi met her gaze directly, a calculated risk in a house where servants were supposed to keep their eyes down. "Because it wasn't mine to use. It was private. Human. Real." She hesitated, then added, "Because I've been where you are. Loving someone who hides from you. Wondering if truth would fix things or destroy them. I wouldn't weaponize that pain. Not for anyone." Something shifted in Jiwoo's expression. Not warmth. She was too damaged for warmth, but recognition. One survivor seeing another. "Stay," Jiwoo said finally. "In the kitchen. Out of sight, but available if..." She glanced at Min Seok, and for the first time Naomi saw actual concern crack through the ice. "If he needs help." Naomi nodded and retreated to the kitchen, closing the door most of the way but leaving it slightly ajar. Not to eavesdrop, she'd already done that and felt the weight of it, but to be ready if needed. From her position, she could see into the formal living room where Min Seok and Ji Woo sat facing each other. Not on the same couch, that would have been too much, too soon, but close enough to talk without shouting. Close enough to reach for each other if they chose to. Min Seok had removed his jacket, his tie, his watch, all the symbols of power and position. He sat in just his shirt and slacks, looking more vulnerable than Naomi had ever seen him. His hands were clasped between his knees, and even from a distance she could see the tremor that ran through them. Ji Woo sat perfectly upright, but her hands were folded in her lap. Fingers twisted together in a way that betrayed her carefully controlled facade. "Tea?" Min Seok offered, gesturing to the pot on the low table between them. "Yes," Ji Woo's voice was soft. "The way you used to make it, when we were young." He poured with steady hands. Naomi noticed him willing the tremors away and passed her a cup. Their fingers brushed in the transfer, and neither pulled away immediately. Small touch, vast territory. They sat in silence for a long moment, sipping tea, and Naomi realized this was its own form of intimacy. Not talking yet, just being in the same space without weapons drawn. Finally, Min Seok spoke. "When did you stop loving me?" Ji Woo flinched. "Is that really where you want to start?" "It's where I need to start, because if you stopped years ago, if this is already dead, then we should know that before we tear each other apart trying to resurrect a corpse." Ji Woo set down her cup with deliberate care. "I never stopped loving you, that's the problem. If I'd stopped, this would be easier. I'd just leave. But I love you, Min Seok. I love the man you used to be and the man you sometimes still are when you forget to be chairman. I love you, and it's destroying me because you won't let me in." His eyes closed, and Naomi saw something in his face that looked like pain. Physical or emotional, she couldn't tell. Maybe both. "I killed my brother," Min Seok said, and the words dropped into the silence like stones into still water. 26 years ago, Jin-ho. You asked me once what happened to him, and I said he betrayed the family, disappeared. That was half true. He betrayed us, slept with our enemies, sold our secrets. So I killed him, put a bullet in his head and burned the body so there wouldn't be questions. Ji Woo went very still. "Why are you telling me this now? Because you wanted truth. Because that's the kind of man you married. A man who kills his own blood when necessary. A man who builds empires on corpses and calls it legacy." His hands were shaking harder now. "And because he wasn't the last person I killed for this family. There have been others. So many others. I didn't want you to know that. Didn't want you to see me covered in that blood. You thought I was too weak to handle your darkness. I thought you were too good for it." He looked at her directly now, and his eyes were wet. "You were the only clean thing in my life, Sirin. The only part that wasn't stained. I wanted to keep you that way. Keep you separate from the monster I became." Ji Woo stood, and for a moment Naomi thought she was leaving, thought this confession had been too much. But instead she moved to sit beside him on the same couch. Not touching, but closer. Within reach. "You don't get to decide what I can handle," she said, her voice steady despite the tears now tracking down her face. "You don't get to lock me in a beautiful cage and call it protection. I married all of you, Min Seok. The good, the bad, the blood-stained, and the brutal. When you shut me out, you told me I wasn't worthy of your truth, that I was just decoration, a trophy to display, not a partner to trust. I was wrong." His voice cracked. "I was so fucking wrong, and I lost you because of it, and now..." He gestured at himself, at the tremors, at the reality he'd been hiding. "Now I'm running out of time to fix it." Ji Woo saw the tremor in his hands and very gently took them in hers. "What's wrong with you? And don't lie. Not tonight. Brain tumor. Inoperable. Dr. Chen gives me 6 months, maybe less." He laughed, bitter and broken. "Isn't that ironic? I spent 20 years building walls to keep you safe from my darkness, And the thing that's killing me is inside my own head, something I can't shoot or burn or negotiate with. The silence that followed was so profound, Naomi could hear the city breathing 63 floors below. Then Ji-woo did something Naomi would never have predicted. She pulled Min Seok toward her, his head against her shoulder, and held him while he broke. Not crying, men like Min Seok didn't cry, even in confession, but breaking nonetheless. The tremors got worse, his breathing ragged, and Ji-woo just held him, her fingers running through his salt and pepper hair, whispering something in Korean that sounded like an old lullaby or a prayer. Naomi turned away then, giving them the privacy they deserved. This wasn't her moment to witness. This was raw and real and too intimate for outside eyes. She moved deeper into the kitchen and sat at the small staff table, her own eyes burning with tears she didn't fully understand. She'd come to Seoul to escape, to be invisible, to serve and survive and ask for nothing. But watching Min Seok's armor crack, watching Ji-woo choose to hold the man who'd shut her out for decades, watching truth replace lies even when truth was so much harder, something in Naomi's chest cracked open too. Maybe love wasn't about being perfect for each other. Maybe it was about being honest when honesty could destroy you, about choosing to stay when leaving would be easier, about holding someone through their breaking because you remembered when they were whole. Hours passed. Naomi heard voices rising and falling in the living room, sometimes angry, sometimes tearful, sometimes almost laughing. She heard confessions traded like currency, secrets exchanged like vows. She heard the sound of two people who'd been strangers in the same house learning to see each other again. And when dawn started painting the sky beyond the bulletproof windows, when Naomi finally risked looking into the living room again, she saw them. Min Seok and Ji-woo, curled together on the couch, her head on his chest, his arms around her, both of them finally asleep. Not fixed, not healed, but honest. Together. Real. The night of truth hadn't saved their marriage, but it had reminded them why they'd built one in the first place, and sometimes remembering was enough to start over. Naomi went to her small room and lay on her narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, and realized something terrifying. She'd stopped trying to be invisible. She'd started caring about these broken, complicated people, and in a house where everyone had secrets worth killing for, caring was the most dangerous thing she could possibly do. But it was too late to stop now. The door had locked behind her, and Naomi Carter was about to discover that in houses built on lies, truth wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. Saturday morning broke over Seoul with the kind of light that made promises it couldn't keep. Naomi woke to find Min Seok and Ji-woo still on the couch. Still tangled together, still breathing in sync. She moved quietly through the penthouse, making coffee, preparing breakfast, trying to be invisible again even though she knew that ship had sailed the moment she'd witnessed their truth. Around 8, Ji-woo stirred first. She extracted herself carefully from Min Seok's arms, and when she saw Naomi in the kitchen, something passed between them. Not quite friendship, but acknowledgement. Recognition of shared witness to vulnerability. "Coffee," Naomi offered quietly. "Please." Ji-woo's voice was rough from crying, from talking, from hours of truth that had scraped her throat raw. She sat at the kitchen counter, still in yesterday's simple dress, her hair disheveled in a way that made her look younger. More human. Thank you. For staying. For being discreet. Of course. Ji-woo wrapped her hands around the coffee mug, staring into it like it held answers. He told me everything last night, 26 years of secrets, blood, and choices that haunt him. And do you know what I realized? She looked up at Naomi with eyes that had cried themselves dry. I already knew most of it. I've always known what he was. I just needed him to trust me enough to tell me himself. Before Naomi could respond, Min Seok appeared in the doorway, looking like a man who'd been through war and somehow survived. The tremors in his hands were more visible in the morning light, but something in his face had changed. Not healed. Healing would take more than one night, but lightened. Like he'd been carrying a weight for so long, he'd forgotten what it felt like to set it down. Sirin. His voice was soft, tentative, like he was learning how to talk to his wife again. Minseok. She smiled, small but real. We should probably get dressed before the children come home and find us like this. Probably. But he didn't move, just stood there looking at her like he was memorizing the moment. Thank you. For last night. For listening. For staying. We're not fixed, Jiwoo said, but there was no coldness in it. This doesn't erase 20 years of silence, but it's a start. And given that you have 6 months... Her voice cracked slightly. We don't have time to waste being strangers. They disappeared to their separate dressing rooms, still maintaining some boundaries, some space, and Naomi was left alone with the coffee and the sunrise and the feeling that something fundamental had shifted in the penthouse. The fortress walls hadn't come down, but someone had opened a window. Let some air in. Let some truth breathe. What Naomi didn't know was that other people had been watching. Other people had been waiting to see how the night of truth would reshape the power dynamics, and in houses built on control, any shift in power was an opportunity. Or a threat. Hyunwoo returned around 10, and the first thing he did was find Naomi. She was cleaning the formal living room, removing the teacups from last night, erasing the evidence of vulnerability, even though everyone who mattered already knew. They survived it. Hyunwoo's voice came from behind her, making her jump. He leaned against the doorframe, dressed in black jeans and a tight black t-shirt that showed every line of lean muscle. His hair was still wet from a shower, and he watched her with those calculating eyes that never seemed to rest. My father's confession, my mother's forgiveness, whatever the hell happened here last night. They survived it. Yes. Are you surprised? Naomi thought about that. No, they love each other, they just forgot how to show it. Love. Hyunwoo said the word like it was foreign, like he was testing its weight. You believe in that? After whatever brought you here running from Atlanta? I believe love exists. I just think most people confuse it with possession, control, fear of being alone. She met his gaze directly. Don't you? Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe. Or recognition. You're smarter than you pretend to be. That's dangerous here. You keep saying that I'm dangerous, that knowledge is dangerous, that everything in this house is dangerous. Naomi set down the teacups with deliberate care. Maybe danger is just the price of being honest in a world built on lies. Hyunwoo moved closer and suddenly the room felt smaller. He didn't touch her, but she could feel the heat of him, the barely contained energy. You want to know what I think, Naomi Carter? I think you heard my father beg, saw him vulnerable, and something in you responded to that. Not attraction, not yet, but recognition. You saw someone powerful brought low by love, and it made you wonder if maybe powerful men could be human after all. Her breath caught because he was right. Uncomfortably, precisely right. And I think, he continued, his voice dropping lower, that you're about to make a very dangerous mistake. You're about to start caring. About him. About this family. About people who will consume you if you let them. Is that what you do? Consume people? His smile was slow and devastating. I haven't decided what I do with you yet, but I'm leaning toward keeping you, one way or another. Before she could respond, before she could process the possessiveness in that statement, Soojin's voice cut through the tension. Jesus, Oppa, could you be any more obvious? The 16-year-old stood in the hallway, phone in hand as always, smirking at them both. You've been circling her like a predator for a week. Either make a move or leave her alone. Stay out of this, Soojin. Why? It's entertaining. She looked at Naomi with those sharp, too-old eyes. Fair warning, new maid. My brother doesn't share well. Never has. And if he decides he wants you, he'll do whatever it takes to have you. Ethics optional. If you're sensing some serious tension building, Hit that like button and let me know if you think Naomi should keep her distance from Hyun-woo or if forbidden attraction is about to complicate everything. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hyun-woo's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, Tae-sung entered the penthouse. The lieutenant looked like he hadn't slept, his compact frame tense with something that went beyond professional concern. His eyes went immediately to the living room, cataloguing the evidence of what had happened there, the teacups, the disturbed cushions, the lingering energy of confession. The chairman? Tae-sung's voice was carefully neutral. Alive, resting. Naomi watched his face carefully. They talked all night. I think they might actually be okay. Something passed across Tae-sung's features, relief, and underneath it, something that looked like grief, the kind of grief you feel when the person you love chooses someone else. Again. Good, Tae-sung said, but the words sounded hollow. That's good. He disappeared toward the security office, and Naomi remembered what she'd witnessed. Tae-sung and Jong-hoon together. Intimate. Real. And Tae-sung's eyes on Min-seok with that devastating longing. A man in love with two people. One he could have in secret, one he could never have at all. The day unfolded with the strange normalcy of people pretending everything was fine when nothing was. Min-seok emerged looking more rested than he had in weeks, the tremors in his hands less pronounced. He and Ji-woo moved around each other with careful courtesy. Not quite touching, but not quite separate either, testing the boundaries of this new honesty. But Naomi noticed other things too. The way Ji-woo's eyes would occasionally drift to her phone, fingers hovering over messages she didn't open. The way Hyun-woo watched his parents with something that wasn't quite happiness, more like calculation, like he was reassessing plans based on new variables. The way Soo-jin recorded everything, her phone always positioned just so, capturing angles and moments no one else thought to preserve. And that afternoon, while everyone was occupied with the fragile piece of post-confession, Naomi found herself alone in the security office, looking for Tae-sung to ask about the evening schedule. What she found instead changed everything. The office was empty, but Tae-sung's computer was on, unlocked, showing files he definitely hadn't meant for anyone to see, financial records, transfer documents, and right there on the screen, offshore accounts in Jong-hoon's name, millions of dollars, money that should have been in the family's legitimate accounts, siphoned off systematically over years. Jong-hoon wasn't just the accountant, he was an embezzler, and from the dates on the transfers, he'd been stealing from the Ryu family for at least 8 years. Naomi's hand hovered over the mouse, debating whether to close the file and pretend she'd never seen it. But her curiosity, that dangerous, fatal curiosity that had already gotten her too involved in this family's business, made her scroll down. And that's when she saw it. Another name on the accounts, not Jong-hoon's, Ji-woo's. The Ice Queen knew about the embezzlement. More than knew, she was complicit. Her signature was on half the transfer authorizations. Ji-woo and Jong-hoon working together to steal millions from Min-seok's empire. But why? Ji-woo had everything. Access to unlimited money, power, position. Why risk everything to steal? Unless it wasn't about money? Unless it was about control? About having something of her own that Min-seok couldn't touch? About building an exit strategy in case she ever needed to run? You shouldn't be in here. Tae-sung's voice was ice and threat. He stood in the doorway, his hand resting on his shoulder holster in a gesture that was definitely a threat this time. Naomi turned slowly, hands up in a gesture of peace. I was looking for you. The door was open. I didn't mean, but you saw. He moved into the room, and Naomi realized how dangerous he actually was. Compact, efficient, trained to kill. You saw the accounts, Jong-hoon's embezzlement, and Mrs. Ryu's involvement, Naomi added, because if she was going to die for this knowledge, she might as well acknowledge all of it. Taesong's laugh was bitter. So you know. Great. Another person carrying secrets that could get them killed. He sat heavily in his chair, suddenly looking exhausted. She knows about us. Me and Jong-hoon. Caught us together 3 years ago and has been using it as leverage ever since. Keep stealing, keep me funded, or I expose you both. Ruin you. Maybe kill you. You love him? It wasn't a question. Yes. And I love... He stopped, but Naomi understood what he wasn't saying. He loved Jong-hoon, the man he could have in secret. And he loved Min Seok, the man he'd served for 20 years. The man who would never see him as anything but a loyal soldier. Complicated didn't begin to cover it. Does Chairman Ryu know? About the embezzlement? No. And he can't. Not yet. Not while he's sick. Not while... Taesong looked at her with desperate eyes. If you tell him Jong-hoon dies, I might die. And Ji-woo, she'll find a way to spin it, to make it about his secrets, forcing her hand. She's a survivor. She'll destroy all of us to save herself. So what do I do with this? Naomi gestured at the computer screen. Pretend I didn't see it? Yes. For now. Until I can figure out how to... He stopped. You're not going to stay quiet, are you? You're not built for silence. I don't know what I'm built for anymore, Naomi said honestly. A week ago, I was just trying to survive. Now I'm drowning in everyone else's secrets. Before Taesong could respond, Hyun-woo appeared in the doorway. His eyes moved from Naomi to Taesong to the computer screen still showing financial records. And his smile was slow and dangerous. Well, he said softly. Isn't this interesting? The maid, the lieutenant, and evidence of embezzlement. Tell me, Naomi, how many secrets are you planning to collect before this house swallows you whole? The three of them stood there in the security office, each holding knowledge that could destroy the others, each calculating their next move. And somewhere in the penthouse, Min Seok and Ji-woo were pretending one night of truth had solved everything, not knowing their house of cards was about to collapse from the weight of secrets they hadn't even confessed yet. Truth, Naomi was learning, wasn't a destination. It was a process. And in the Ryu household, that process was about to get bloody. The standoff in the security office broke when Min Seok's voice echoed down the hallway, calling for Taesong. The lieutenant moved immediately, muscle memory and years of loyalty overriding the panic in his eyes. Hyun-woo watched him go with that calculating expression that never seemed to rest, then turned his full attention to Naomi. Close the file, he said quietly. Forget what you saw, or don't. Your choice. But understand that knowledge in this house comes with a price tag, and you might not like the currency we trade in. He left, before she could respond, and Naomi stood there alone with the computer screen glowing accusation and evidence. Her finger hovered over the mouse. Close it. Walk away. Be invisible again. But her hand clicked instead, and the files began downloading to the small USB drive she'd pulled from her pocket, the one she'd brought from Atlanta, the one that held the only photos she had of her mother, her childhood, her life before Marcus and his fists. She was erasing those memories, overwriting them with evidence of embezzlement and betrayal, and she didn't even fully understand why. Insurance, maybe. Or proof that she wasn't crazy, that this beautiful marble cage really was as dangerous as it felt. Or maybe just the desperate act of someone who'd already fallen too deep to climb back out. The files finished copying. Naomi ejected the drive, slipped it into her bra, where it rested cold against her heart, and closed the computer. Then she went back to being invisible. Back to serving and cleaning and pretending she was just the help. But everyone knew she wasn't. Not anymore. That evening, Ji-woo summoned her to the private study, not Min Seok's office filled with business and blood, but Ji-woo's personal space, elegant and cold, filled with traditional Korean art and modern design. It looked like a museum exhibit, on how to be beautiful and untouchable at the same time. Jiwoo sat in a leather chair that could have been a throne, dressed in a silk robe that probably cost more than Naomi would earn in a year. She looked like she had the morning after the night of truth, more human, less ice queen. But her eyes held something sharp and assessing. Sit, not a request. Naomi sat on the chair across from her, hands folded in her lap, heart racing but face carefully neutral. "You've been in this house a week," Jiwoo began, her English precise and cutting. "In that time, you've witnessed a private conversation between my husband and me. You've seen things in the security office you shouldn't have seen. You've attracted the attention of my son, who doesn't do anything without calculation. And you've managed to make yourself indispensable enough that my husband specifically requested you stay during our night of truth." She leaned forward slightly. "For someone who's supposed to be invisible, Miss Carter, you're remarkably present. I don't mean to be. Don't you?" Jiwoo's smile was cold. "I've done research on you. The agency that sent you is discreet, shall we say. They specialize in placing people who need to disappear, people running from something, people with secrets." She pulled out a folder, physical, old school, threatening in its tangibility. "Marcus Williams, your ex-boyfriend. Restraining order filed 7 months ago after he put you in the hospital. Broken ribs, fractured orbital bone, internal bleeding. And yet, you didn't press charges. Why?" Naomi's jaw tightened. "That's not relevant to my work here. Everything is relevant, because I need to know, are you running from him, or are you running from what you did to him?" Jiwoo opened the folder, showed Naomi a police report she'd hoped never to see again. "Marcus Williams died 3 weeks after you filed that restraining order. Fell down the stairs in his apartment building. Broken neck, ruled accidental, but the detective's notes suggest he had questions. Wondered if someone might have helped him fall." The room spun slightly. Naomi gripped the chair arms to steady herself. "I didn't." "I don't care if you did or didn't," Jiwoo interrupted. "I care that you're capable of it, that you're not some innocent maid who stumbled into our household. You're a survivor who does what's necessary. Just like me." She closed the folder. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to continue being discreet. You're going to forget what you saw in the security office. You're going to stop attracting my son's attention, or if you can't stop it, you're going to manage it carefully. And in return, your past stays buried. Marcus's death stays accidental. You stay safe. And if I don't agree, then I'll make sure the Atlanta police get an anonymous tip, with evidence, with motivation, with enough to reopen the case." Jiwoo's smile was sharp as broken glass. "I'm very good at making evidence appear, Miss Carter. My husband's first wife died of natural causes 20 years ago. Cardiac arrest, the death certificate said. Would you like to know what really happened?" Naomi's blood went cold. This was it. The threat Hyun-woo had warned about. The moment when carrying secrets became actively dangerous. "Arsenic," Jiwoo continued, her voice conversational. "Slow poisoning over 6 months. Small doses in her tea, her food, her medication. By the time the symptoms were obvious, it was too late. And the family doctor, purchased and loyal, signed off on natural causes. No autopsy, no questions. Just a funeral and a widow who became the new Mrs. Ryu within a year." "You killed her." "I survived her," Jiwoo corrected. "She was weak, fragile, everything a Mafia wife shouldn't be. Min-seok needed someone stronger, someone who understood that love in our world requires steel, not sentiment." She stood, moved to the window overlooking Seoul's glittering expanse. "I'm telling you this, so you understand what I'm capable of, what I'll do to protect what's mine. And right now that includes making sure my husband's fragile reconciliation isn't destroyed by secrets he doesn't need to know yet. Before you find out what Naomi does with this information, drop a like if you're as shocked as I am that Jiwoo just confessed to murder. And comment below, is Jiwoo protecting her family or herself? Let me know what you think. The embezzlement, Naomi said quietly. You and Jong-hoon. Does Min Seok know? Not yet, and he won't. Not from you. Ji-woo turned from the window backlit by city lights, looking like an avenging angel or a beautiful demon depending on your perspective. That money is my insurance. My exit strategy if this reconciliation fails, if his illness takes him, if I need to disappear. Every woman in this life needs an escape plan. Even you should understand that. And Jong-hoon is useful, controllable. He and Tae-sung have their little affair, and I use it to keep them both in line. It's elegant, really. Everyone gets what they want. Jong-hoon gets his lover, Tae-sung gets to stay close to the man he's pathetically in love with, and I get my security. Her eyes narrowed. But you're a complication now. You know too much, so I need assurance that you'll stay quiet. How do you plan to assure that? Ji-woo moved closer. And Naomi caught that scent again. Expensive perfume and something underneath it, something medicinal and bitter. I could threaten you. Tell you I'll put the same poison in your food that I gave the first Mrs. Rao. But threats are so crude. Instead, I'll offer you something better. Protection, money, a place in this household that goes beyond servant. You've seen my husband's vulnerability. You've witnessed something real in him. And I think, despite your better judgment, you're starting to care. I'm not. Don't lie to yourself. I saw your face when he was coughing up blood at dinner. When his hands were shaking. You felt something. Sympathy, attraction, that dangerous combination of wanting to save someone who's drowning. Ji-woo's smile was almost kind. Almost. So here's my offer. Help me keep him alive and ignorant for his remaining months. Don't tell him about the money. Don't tell him about the affairs. Don't burden him with more betrayals when he's already dying. Let him have his peace. His reconciliation with me. His illusion that truth fixed everything. And in return, I'll make sure you're taken care of. Financially, legally, permanently. And if I say no, then you'll discover how creative I can be with poison, how slowly I can make someone waste away. You'll feel it in your stomach first, then your joints, your hair will fall out, you'll miscarry. She stopped, studied Naomi's face. Oh, you didn't know yet, did you? That you're pregnant? The world tilted. Naomi's hand went instinctively to her stomach, which had been tender for days, which she'd attributed to stress and jet lag and the rich food she'd been eating. I'm not. You are. About 4 weeks, I'd estimate. I've been pregnant twice, I know the signs. Ji-woo's expression was unreadable. So now the question is, whose is it? Marcus's before you left Atlanta? Or have you already been busy here with my son, perhaps, who's been circling you like a predator all week? Naomi couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The USB drive pressed cold against her heart, evidence of embezzlement. And now this, a pregnancy she hadn't known about, couldn't want, didn't understand. If it was Marcus's, it was a nightmare from a life she'd tried to leave behind. If it was anyone else's, but it couldn't be. She hadn't been with anyone since Marcus, hadn't let anyone close enough. Except, the math didn't work. Marcus had been dead for weeks before she left Atlanta. The timing was wrong, which meant, no, impossible. But Ji-woo's knowing smile suggested otherwise. You don't remember, do you? The night before you left Atlanta, the hotel room. The man who paid your bar tab, bought you drinks, took you upstairs when you could barely stand. You thought it was kindness. It wasn't. It was recruitment. The room spun harder now. Naomi had fragments of memory from that night, a man with a kind voice and expensive suit, someone who'd listened to her story about needing to leave, who'd offered to help with placement agencies, who'd bought round after round until the edges of the world went soft. And then, nothing. A gap. Morning in a hotel room she hadn't checked into alone, with a business card for the placement agency and no memory of how she'd gotten there. You drugged me. Not me personally, but yes, someone in my employ. We needed someone like you, smart, desperate, capable of violence when cornered. Someone who'd be grateful for rescue. Someone we could control. Jiwoo's voice was almost gentle now, which made it worse. The pregnancy was a bonus. Insurance that you'd behave. And, before you ask, yes, we know who the father is. One of my recruiters. He's gone now. Disappeared. You'll never find him. But the baby, she shrugged. The baby is leverage, because as much as you might want to tell yourself, you don't want it. I see the way your hand is protecting your stomach right now. You already love it, which means you'll do whatever I say to keep it safe. Naomi stood on shaking legs. This couldn't be real. This level of manipulation, of calculated cruelty, of long-term planning that had targeted her specifically, had impregnated her deliberately, had trapped her in this marble fortress with no exit and no escape. Why me? Her voice came out broken. Because you survived, Marcus. Because the detective suspected you'd helped him fall but couldn't prove it. Because you were willing to kill to save yourself, which means you understand the currency we trade in here. Jiwoo moved to her desk, pulled out another folder. And because of this, she opened it to reveal a photograph. Old, 26 years old based on the date stamp. And in it, a young black woman who looked so much like Naomi it could have been her twin. Same bone structure, same eyes, same scar above the left eyebrow. Her name was Angela Carter, Jiwoo said softly. She worked for the Ryu family 26 years ago. Different position, different circumstances, but she got too close, learned too much, saw things she shouldn't have, and she paid for it. Another photo. Angela Carter dead, throat cut, dumped in a river. She was your mother, Naomi, and you never knew she worked for us, never knew how she really died. The Seoul police ruled it a random mugging. It wasn't. Naomi couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't process. Her mother, who died when Naomi was 2, who she barely remembered, who'd supposedly been killed in Atlanta in a home invasion, had been in Seoul, had worked for the Ryu family, had died because of them. So you see, Jiwoo continued, this is destiny, full circle. Angela Carter's daughter, back in the same house, making the same mistakes. Except this time, I'm offering you a choice she never got. Work with me, stay quiet. Protect the baby. And survive, she smiled. Or don't. And become another file in my drawer. Another woman who knew too much and paid for it with her life. The threat hung in the air between them, sharp as the knife that had killed Naomi's mother. And in that moment, Naomi understood something fundamental about the Ryu household. This wasn't just a family, it was a machine that consumed people and turned them into leverage, into control. Into ghosts who haunted marble hallways and warned those who came after, run while you still can. But Naomi couldn't run. Not with a baby growing inside her that she hadn't chosen but already felt protective of. Not with her mother's ghost demanding answers. Not with Min Seok's vulnerability cracking something open in her chest that she'd tried to keep locked. She was trapped, pregnant, dangerous, and drowning in a conspiracy that stretched back 26 years to a mother she'd never known and a death that had never been avenged. I'll stay quiet, Naomi said, hating herself for it, about the embezzlement, about the first wife, about all of it. Good girl. Jiwoo's approval felt like poison. Now get out. And remember, I'm watching, always watching. One wrong move, one confession to my husband, and you'll join your mother in the river, and your baby will die with you. Naomi left the study on legs that barely held her, made it to her tiny room, and vomited in the toilet until there was nothing left. Then she lay on the floor, hand on her stomach, where a baby she hadn't wanted was growing. USB drive pressing against her heart where evidence she couldn't use was hiding, and her mother's ghost whispering warnings she'd learned too late to heed. She'd come to Seoul to disappear. Instead, she'd walked straight into her mother's death sentence, and the only question now was whether she'd survive long enough to understand why. Naomi didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her mother's face in that photograph, young, beautiful, doomed, 26 years old, the same age Naomi was now, working in the same house, carrying secrets that had killed her. And now Naomi was pregnant with a baby conceived through drugged manipulation, trapped in a conspiracy she didn't understand, holding evidence she couldn't use without signing her own death warrant. The USB drive sat on her nightstand, small and innocuous, and lethal. The embezzlement files. Proof that could save Min Seok's empire or destroy what was left of his marriage. Proof that would get Naomi killed if Ji-woo discovered she had it. Around 3 a.m., there was a soft knock on her door. Naomi's hand went instinctively to the knife she'd started keeping under her pillow. A kitchen knife, stolen and hidden, because in houses where your mother was murdered and you were deliberately impregnated, you learn to sleep with weapons close. "It's me," Hyun-woo's voice low and controlled. "Let me in, Naomi. We need to talk." She should tell him to leave, should maintain the boundaries between servant and family. But boundaries had dissolved a week ago, if they'd ever existed at all. She opened the door. Hyun-woo stood in the hallway wearing black silk pajama pants and a t-shirt that showed the edge of that tattoo on his ribcage. His hair was disheveled, his eyes intense and sleepless, and he radiated the kind of controlled danger that made Naomi's survival instincts scream, and something else in her chest tighten with dangerous interest. "You look like hell," he said, studying her face in the dim light. "What did my mother say to you?" "I can't." "She threatened you, probably told you about the first wife, definitely implied she'd poison you if you talked." He moved into the room without invitation, closed the door behind him. "What else?" "How do you know?" "Because I know her. I've watched her operate for 25 years. She collects secrets like weapons and deploys them when people get too close to things she wants protected." He sat on the edge of her narrow bed, looked up at her with those calculating eyes that never stopped assessing. "So what leverage did she use on you? What does she know that makes you look like you've seen a ghost?" Naomi's hand went unconsciously to her stomach, and Hyun-woo's eyes tracked the movement. His expression shifted, something between surprise and understanding and a dangerous kind of calculation. "You're pregnant." Not a question. "I didn't know, not until she—" Naomi's voice cracked. "It's not natural. I was drugged, recruited, set up to come here because my mother worked for your family 26 years ago and was murdered for knowing too much. This whole thing was planned. I'm not a maid. I'm a fucking pawn in your mother's game, and I don't even know what the game is." Hyun-woo went very still. Then, slowly, deliberately, he stood and moved close to her. Not touching, but close enough that she could feel his heat, could see the way his jaw tightened with something that looked like fury. "Angela Carter," he said quietly. "Your mother. I remember her. I was only a year old when she died, but I've seen the files. My mother keeps files on everyone. Every servant, every employee, everyone who's ever gotten close enough to see the cracks in our perfect facade." His hand came up, cupped her face gently. "You look like her. I should have seen it immediately, but I was distracted by other things." "What happened to her? Really?" "She saw my father with his brother, Jin-ho. Saw something she shouldn't have. I don't know what exactly, but something that threatened the family. So she was eliminated. Clean, efficient, made to look random." His thumb brushed the scar above her eyebrow. "She had the same scar. Did you know that? Right there. Like you inherited her wounds along with her face." Naomi's breath caught. "How did she get it?" "My uncle gave it to her. Jin-ho. He was complicated, dangerous. He liked to mark the people he played with." Hyun-woo's eyes went dark with old memories. "And before you ask, yes. Played with. In exactly the way you're thinking. Jin-ho had particular tastes. Power dynamics, control games. He collected people the way some men collect art, and your mother caught his attention." The room felt too small suddenly, too close. Naomi stepped back, but Hyun-woo followed. maintaining that careful distance that felt both respectful and predatory. My mother thinks she can control you with threats, he continued, his voice dropping lower. Fear of poison, fear for the baby, fear of ending up like your mother. But I don't think that's what controls you, Naomi. I think you're drawn to danger. You killed Marcus. Don't deny it, I can see the truth in your eyes. You helped him fall down those stairs because he hurt you once too often. Because you learned that sometimes survival requires violence. I didn't. Yes, you did. And I respect that. I respect people who do what's necessary. He moved closer still, backing her against the wall, but his body language was careful, controlled, giving her room to say no even as he crowded her space. Do you want to know what I think? I think you're tired of being controlled. Tired of powerful people deciding your fate. My mother, your ex, whoever drugged you and put that baby in you. You're drowning in other people's agendas, and you want something that's yours. A choice that's actually yours. His hand was on the wall beside her head now, his body creating a cage that felt paradoxically like safety and threat at once. Naomi should push him away. Should remember she was pregnant, traumatized, drowning in conspiracies she didn't understand. But Hyunwoo was right. She was tired of being controlled, tired of being a pawn. And there was something about the way he looked at her, like she was a person, not a servant. Like her darkness didn't scare him because he had plenty of his own. What are you offering? Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Protection, information, agency. His other hand came up, traced the line of her jaw with deliberate slowness. I've been planning something for years. Revenge against my father for lies I only recently confirmed. But watching him beg my mother for forgiveness, seeing him dying from the inside out, realizing he actually loved her under all the power plays and secrets, it's complicated things, made me question what I want. And what do you want? His smile was slow and dangerous. I want truth. Real truth, not the carefully curated version my parents shared during their one honest night. I want to understand why my mother killed your mother, why my uncle disappeared, or did he? Why I exist, what I am, who owns me. His thumb brushed her lower lip. And I want you. Have since the moment I saw you. Want to see if someone as damaged as I am can actually connect with someone as broken as you are. Before Naomi could respond, before she could process the admission, or the offer, or the dangerous intimacy building between them, his mouth was on hers. Not forceful, surprisingly gentle actually, giving her time to push him away. When she didn't, when instead her hands fisted in his shirt and pulled him closer, the kiss deepened into something hungry and desperate and edged with all the darkness they'd both been carrying. If you're shipping Naomi and Hyunwoo despite the complication, hit that like button. And drop a comment. Is this a terrible idea, or exactly the kind of dangerous alliance Naomi needs to survive? Let me know. They broke apart, both breathing hard, and Hyunwoo rested his forehead against hers. This is probably the worst decision either of us could make. Probably. Naomi's voice was rough, but I'm tired of good decisions. They haven't exactly kept me safe. Fair. He pulled back slightly, studied her face. So, here's what I know that might help you. My mother's embezzlement. My father suspects. He's not stupid, just dying and distracted. He's been having Tae-sung quietly investigate discrepancies, which means your little discovery in the security office. You're not the first person to see those files. You're just the first person my mother decided to threaten instead of kill. Why threaten me instead of killing me? Because she needs you. You're the variable she didn't plan for. You were supposed to be controlled, grateful, easy to manipulate. Instead, you're smart, suspicious, and you've seen my father at his most vulnerable, which means he might actually listen to you, might trust you in ways he doesn't trust anyone else. My mother needs you compliant, but alive. At least until she figures out how to use your connection to my father against him. Naomi's mind was racing. the night of truth, your parents' reconciliation. She's letting that happen because a dying man who thinks his marriage is saved won't dig too deep into missing money, won't question, won't look for betrayals when he thinks he's found forgiveness. Hyunwoo's expression was cold with admiration for his mother's strategy. It's elegant, really. She's buying time, building her exit strategy. When he finally dies, she'll be positioned perfectly. Money secured, alliances maintained, and if anyone asks questions, she's the grieving widow who stood by her husband through terminal illness. Untouchable. Unless someone tells him the truth. Hyunwoo agreed. Which brings us to you. Are you going to tell him about the embezzlement, the manipulation, the threats? Are you going to be the truth teller in a house built on lies? I don't know. Naomi's hand went to her stomach again. I don't even know if I can trust you. If this, she gestured between them, is real or just another manipulation. It's probably both. His honesty was startling. I'm attracted to you, genuinely, but I'm also calculating how you fit into my plans, how we could use each other, whether alliance with you serves my agenda. I'm my mother's son in that way. I can't turn off the strategy even when I want to. At least you're honest about it. Truth is the only currency that matters between us. Anything else is just more lies in a house drowning in them. He stepped back, giving her space again. So here's my truth. I want to help you. Want to protect you and that baby you didn't choose but are already trying to love. Want to understand what happened to your mother and why. But I also want revenge and information and leverage against my parents for reasons you don't fully understand yet. Can you live with that? With someone whose motives are as mixed as the blood that runs through this house? Naomi thought about it. About her options, which were basically comply with Jiwoo's threats and hope to survive, or ally with Hyunwoo and hope he was more honest than his mother. Neither choice was safe. Both involved trusting people who'd learned manipulation from experts. But at least with Hyunwoo, the manipulation was acknowledged, named, put on the table instead of hidden behind smiles and poisoned threats. I can live with it, she said finally, for now, until I can't anymore. Fair enough. He moved to the door, then paused. One more thing. My uncle, Jin Ho. He's not dead. The room tilted. What? My father thinks he killed him 26 years ago. Bullet to the head, body burned beyond recognition. But I've been tracking financial movements, and someone's been pulling money from old Ryu family accounts. Someone who knows access codes that only Jin Ho would know. His expression was unreadable. I think he survived. I think he's been hiding, planning, waiting. And I think he's coming back. Soon. Why are you telling me this? Because if he comes back, if he's alive, everything changes. The embezzlement, the murder of your mother, the power structure of this entire family, it all gets rewritten. And when that happens, Naomi, you need to know which side you're on. Because the storm that's coming will drown everyone who isn't prepared. He left, and Naomi stood there in her small room with her hand on her stomach and her mind racing with impossible revelations. Her mother's murder, Hyunwoo's dead uncle who might not be dead, Jiwoo's carefully constructed prison of threats and leverage, Min-seok's terminal illness and desperate reconciliation, the baby growing inside her that she hadn't chosen but couldn't bring herself to hate, and somewhere in Japan, if Hyunwoo was right, a ghost was planning his resurrection. A man who'd marked women with scars above their left eyebrow, a man who'd known her mother, a man whose supposed death had triggered 26 years of consequences that were about to come due. Naomi looked at the USB drive on her nightstand. Evidence of embezzlement, proof of betrayal, a weapon she could use or a death sentence she carried. She picked it up, held it in her palm, and made a decision. Not to tell Min-seok, not yet. Not to give it to Jiwoo, never. But to keep it close, to wait, to watch, to become something more than a pawn in everyone else's game. Her mother had died for knowing too much. Naomi was going to survive by knowing everything, and when the dead brother came back to claim his vengeance, when the house of cards finally collapsed, she'd be ready to choose which pieces to save and which to let burn. The baby kicked. Impossible too early, but Naomi felt it anyway. Or maybe it was just her heart, hammering against her ribs, reminding her she was alive, still alive, and planning to stay that way. Even if it meant becoming exactly the kind of dangerous woman this family feared most. 3 days after Hyunwoo's revelation about his possibly alive uncle, the ghost became flesh. It happened on a Tuesday morning, early, when Seoul's autumn mist made the city look like something from a dream or a nightmare. Naomi was preparing breakfast when she heard the commotion from the penthouse entrance. Raised voices in Korean, sharp and urgent, the distinctive sound of Tai Sung's controlled aggression meeting someone, unexpected. She moved toward the formal living room, staying in the shadows as she'd learned to do, and saw him, Ryu Jin-ho. Supposed to be dead for 26 years. Very much alive, he looked like Min-seok's shadow or maybe his darker reflection. 5'11" instead of 6'1", leaner but still dangerous with long hair tied back in a style that suggested rebellion or exile or both. His face showed the years, 45 instead of the 19 he should have been if he'd died when Min-seok claimed, but it was the scars that told the real story. Burn scars covered the left side of his face and neck, disappearing under his expensive but worn clothing. Scars from the fire that was supposed to have consumed his body. Scars that said he'd survived through sheer will, or divine intervention, or demonic bargain. His eyes, though. His eyes were what made Naomi's blood run cold. Dark and intelligent and burning with 26 years of carefully cultivated rage. "Hello, brother." Jin-ho's voice was rough, damaged by smoke or screaming or both. His Korean was accented now, flavoured with years abroad. "Did you miss me?" Min-seok stood frozen in the hallway, still in his morning robe, coffee cup suspended halfway to his mouth like his brain had stopped processing reality. The tremor in his hands got worse, coffee spilling over the rim, and Naomi saw the exact moment his mind accepted the impossible. "You're dead." Min-seok's voice was hollow. "I killed you. I watched you burn." "You watched someone burn?" Jin-ho's smile was sharp with vindication. "My dear friend Kwan. Poor bastard had the misfortune of being my height and build, and of trusting me when I said I'd get him out of the country if he just wore my clothes and met you in my place." He moved further into the penthouse, and Naomi noticed he walked with a slight limp, another souvenir from his supposed death. "You really should have checked the dental records, Min-seok. But you were so eager to believe I was dead, so desperate to erase the brother who knew too much about your sins." Jiwoo appeared from the master suite, and her face went paper white. Not surprise, recognition. She'd known. Somehow, someway, she'd known Jin-ho was alive. "You." Jin-ho's attention shifted to her, and something in his expression turned almost tender. Almost. Still beautiful. Still ice-cold, still playing the grieving wife while stealing from the man you married to replace me. "I married him to survive you," Jiwoo said, her voice steady despite her pallor. "You would have destroyed me, consumed me, used me up and thrown me away like you did every other person who made the mistake of loving you." "Love." Jin-ho laughed, bitter and broken. "Is that what we called it? I remember it differently. I remember possession, obsession, two damaged people using each other because we were too twisted for normal relationships." His eyes found Hyunwoo, who'd appeared at the top of the stairs, and his expression shifted into something complex and painful. "And I remember the child you swore was Min-seok's, the son you used to trap him into marriage. My son. Our son." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the city noise 63 floors below seemed to die. Hyunwoo's face was carefully blank, but Naomi could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands fisted at his sides. "I know," he said quietly. "I've known for years. I found the DNA test, read the letters you left hidden in Mother's things. I know you're my biological father. The question is, why come back now? After letting me think I was Min Seok's son? After abandoning both of us?" "Abandoning?" Jinho's voice rose, cracked. "I was supposed to be dead. Your mother," he gestured at Jiwoo, "made her choice. She chose safety over truth, chose Min Seok's empire over my chaos. I honored that choice by staying dead, by watching from a distance while my brother raised my son. But now," he looked at Min Seok with something that might have been pity or might have been satisfaction. "Now I hear you're dying, brother. 6 months, the rumors say. And suddenly the throne is empty. The empire is vulnerable, and I thought, why not come home? Claim what's mine. My son. My woman. My birthright." Min Seok's coffee cup shattered on the marble floor. Not dropped. Thrown. "You want to talk about birthright? After you betrayed this family, sold our secrets to the Kim syndicate, got 6 of our men killed because you couldn't keep your fucking mouth shut when you were high or drunk or fucking your way through half of Seoul's underworld. I was 23 and self-destructive," Jinho shot back. "You could have helped me, could have gotten me treatment, gotten me clean. Instead, you put a bullet in what you thought was my head and burned away the evidence of your baby brother's existence." Hit that like button if you didn't see this level of family dysfunction coming. And comment below, is Jinho here for revenge, redemption, or something else entirely? The argument escalated into shouting, switching between Korean and English, and Naomi caught fragments of accusations 26 years old. Then Soojin's voice cut through it all, young and sharp and completely done with family drama. "Oh my God, can everyone just stop?" The 16-year-old stood at her bedroom door, phone in hand as always, looking at the adults like they were particularly stupid children. Uncle Jinho is alive. Shocker. Oppa is actually his son. Also shocking. Except we've all basically known for years, even if we pretended not to. Can we skip the dramatic revelations and get to the part where someone explains what happens now? Jinho's attention shifted to her, and something in his expression softened. "Soojin, you've grown. Last time I saw your picture, you were 12. You've been keeping tabs on us?" Jiwoo's voice was dangerous now. "Of course I have. I'm not actually dead, just elsewhere. Japan mostly. Building my own enterprise, watching my family from a distance, waiting for the right moment to come back." He moved to the couch, sat like he owned it, which Naomi supposed he sort of did. "And that moment is now. Min Seok is dying. The succession is unclear. Hyun-woo is my biological son but raised by my brother. Jong-hoon has been embezzling millions with your help, Sirin. Tae-sung is desperately in love with Min Seok while secretly fucking the accountant. And," his eyes found Naomi in the shadows, "there's a new maid who looks exactly like Angela Carter. Tell me, Miss Carter, are you her daughter, here to solve your mother's murder? Or are you just another pawn in my brother's endless game?" Every eye in the room turned to Naomi. She stepped out of the shadows because hiding was pointless now, and met Jinho's gaze directly. "Both. Neither. I'm here because your family recruited me, drugged me, impregnated me, and turned me into leverage, just like they did to my mother 26 years ago." Jinho's scarred face twisted with something that looked like genuine remorse. Angela. God, I haven't heard that name in... She was beautiful. Smart. Too smart for her own good. She figured out what I was planning. The betrayal. The secrets I was selling. She was going to tell Min Seok. I couldn't let her do that. The room went silent. Naomi's hands clenched into fists, nails digging into her palms hard enough to draw blood. "You killed her." "I marked her first." Jinho touched his own eyebrow, mirroring the scar Naomi carried. "It was my signature. The women I played with. The ones who got too close, I'd mark them. A ring, usually. Sharp edge. Right there. So they'd remember they belonged to me, even if just for a moment. He looked at Naomi's scar. Your mother fought back. She was pregnant when I gave her that scar. Pregnant with you. She told me she'd die before she let me hurt her baby. So I obliged her. Throat cut, clean, fast. More mercy than she probably deserved for threatening to destroy me. Naomi moved before she could think, kitchen knife appearing from where she'd hidden it in her uniform pocket, because after Jiwoo's threats, she'd started carrying weapons everywhere. She had the blade against Jinho's throat before anyone could react, pressing hard enough to draw blood, and his eyes widened with something that might have been respect or might have been fear. You killed my mother because she was pregnant, because she tried to protect me, because she knew too much. Naomi's voice was steady despite the rage shaking through her entire body. And now I'm pregnant. Carrying a baby I didn't choose, just like she was. And I know too much, just like she did. So tell me, are you going to kill me too? Or am I going to kill you first? Naomi, Hyunwoo's voice careful and controlled, put down the knife. Why? So he can finish what he started? So he can mark me and kill me like he did my mother? Because you're not her. Hyunwoo moved closer, hands visible, non-threatening. You're stronger, smarter, more dangerous, and because killing him now in front of witnesses will only hurt you. There are better ways to get justice. Jinho laughed even with the blade at his throat. The boy's right. You're not like Angela. She was soft underneath, but you... His eyes met Naomi's. You've already killed once, haven't you? Marcus Williams, your ex-boyfriend. You pushed him down those stairs, watched him break, and felt nothing but relief. I can see it in your eyes. You're my kind of damaged. Don't compare us. Why not? We're the same. Survivors willing to do violence when necessary. Players in a game where the rules are written in blood. He reached up slowly, wrapped his scarred hand around hers on the knife, and pulled it deeper against his own throat. So do it. Kill me. Avenge your mother. But know that if you do, you'll never understand the full truth. About why she was really recruited. About what Min-seok and I were fighting over that went beyond family business. About the child she was carrying, you, and why your existence threatened everything. Naomi's hand trembled. She wanted to cut, wanted to watch him bleed out on the expensive couch, wanted to feel his life drain away as payment for her mother's murder. But his words hooked into her brain like fish hooks. Truth. Full truth. Things she didn't know. She lowered the knife, stepped back, but kept it visible in her hand. Talk. Jinho touched his throat, looked at the blood on his fingers, and smiled. Your mother wasn't just a maid. She was CIA, deep cover, investigating the Ryu family's connections to weapons trafficking. She got pregnant deliberately, with me, to deepen her cover, to make herself indispensable. But she made the mistake of falling in love with her assignment, with me. And when she realized I was the key to bringing down the whole operation, she hesitated. That hesitation killed her. The floor tilted under Naomi's feet. You're lying. I'm not. Ask Tae-sung. He was young then, just starting out, but he was there. He saw the CIA documents. He helped dispose of them after I killed her. Didn't you, Tae-sung? All eyes turned to the lieutenant, who stood silent and rigid near the entrance. His face was carefully blank, but Naomi saw the truth in his eyes before he looked away. It's true, Tae-sung said quietly. Angela Carter was federal. She'd been investigating the family for 2 years. She got pregnant with you to solidify her cover story. Single mother, desperate, needing work. But she actually cared about you. When Jinho figured out who she was, when he threatened to kill you both, she begged. Offered to walk away, to bury the investigation, to disappear. Jinho killed her anyway. I helped cover it up because... He looked at Min-seok with those loyal, longing eyes. Because I'd do anything for this family, even bury the truth about a murdered federal agent. Naomi couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Her mother hadn't been a victim. She'd been an agent, a spy, A woman who'd played the same games Naomi was playing now, getting close to dangerous men, carrying secrets that could kill her, trying to survive in a house built on blood. And she'd failed. So you see, Jinho continued, your mother's death wasn't random. It was strategic. She was a threat to the family, to me, to the entire empire. I eliminated that threat. And now here you are, her daughter carrying her face, pregnant like she was, drowning in the same secrets. Tell me, Miss Carter, does it feel like destiny? Or does it feel like a trap that's been waiting 26 years to close? Before Naomi could answer, Dr. Chen Wei burst into the penthouse, medical bag in hand, looking panicked. Chairman, I got your message about an emergency. He stopped when he saw the scene. Jin Ho on the couch, blood on his throat. The entire family standing in tableau like a portrait of dysfunction. Naomi with a knife. What is happening here? Family reunion, Hyun Woo said dryly. Uncle Jin Ho isn't dead. Naomi just tried to kill him, the usual Tuesday morning drama. Dr. Chen's eyes went to Jin Ho, and something complicated passed across his delicate features. Recognition, and something else. Something that looked like grief or longing or both. Wei, Jinho's voice softened. It's been a long time. 26 years. Dr. Chen's hands tightened on his medical bag. You said you'd come back for me. You said after you fixed things with your family, after you settled your debts, we'd disappear together. Build something real. But you died. I mourned you. His voice broke. I moved on. The revelation hit like another bomb. Dr. Chen and Jinho. Together. Lovers, apparently. Before Jinho's supposed death. You moved on to my brother, Jinho said, and there was actual pain in his voice. To Min Seok. You became his doctor, his confidant. Did you tell him about us, Wei? About what we were to each other? About the things we did in private? The way you'd dress up for me? Become something soft and vulnerable instead of the respectable physician everyone else saw? Dr. Chen's face flushed. That's not fair. You were dead. I had to survive. Had to build a life. Min Seok needed a doctor he could trust, and I needed... He stopped, looked at Min Seok with something that might have been apology or might have been defiance. I needed someone to take care of, someone to matter to. You took that from me when you died, or when you pretended to die and left me behind. The web of connections was dizzying. Jinho and Dr. Chen, Ji Woo and Jinho, Min Seok and everyone, Tai Sung and Jong-hoon, and unrequited love for Min Seok. Naomi's mother and her CIA investigation. Every relationship twisted, layered, complicated by secrets and lies, and the kind of damage that took decades to accumulate. So what now? Soo-jin asked, still standing there with her phone, probably recording every word. Uncle Jin-ho comes back from the dead. Drops bombs about everyone's secrets, and we all just... What? Sit down to breakfast? Pretend this is normal? Nothing about this family is normal, Naomi said, finding her voice again. Her hand still held the knife, still ached to use it. But I want answers. All of them. About my mother, about the CIA investigation, about who knew what and when, about what really happened 26 years ago and why I'm here now. Then sit down, Jinho said, gesturing to the other couches like he owned the place, which in a very real sense he did. He was the rightful heir, the firstborn son, the ghost who'd come home to claim his throne. Because the story is long and it's ugly, and by the time I'm done, every single person in this room is going to have to choose which side they're on. Min Seok's empire or mine, the past or the future. Truth or comfortable lies. And as Naomi sat, as the whole fractured family arranged themselves in the formal living room where just days ago Min Seok had begged Ji-woo for forgiveness, she realized something fundamental. The night of truth had solved nothing. It had only set the stage for this moment, for the real confessions, for the accounting that came due after 26 years of buried bodies and hidden lives. Her mother's ghost whispered warnings, her unborn baby pressed against her heart. The USB drive in her pocket held evidence that could destroy half the people in this room. And Jin-ho, scarred, angry, possibly her mother's killer and definitely his nephew's father, was about to rewrite every truth she thought she knew. The storm Hyun-woo had warned about was here, and Naomi was standing right in the eye of it, knife in hand. Mother's blood on her conscience, and no idea which way to run when it finally tore them all apart. Part 8. Finale. Blood and Redemption. Minutes 52, 30, 60. Jin-ho's story took 3 hours to tell. 3 hours of confessions that made the night of truth between Min-seok and Ji-woo look like a gentle warm-up. 3 hours of watching a family disintegrate under the weight of 26 years of accumulated lies. He told them about the weapons trafficking that had gotten out of control, about the CIA investigation that Angela Carter had been running, about how he'd been high and reckless and in love with his brother's wife-to-be, and how that toxic combination had led to decisions that destroyed lives. About the fire that was supposed to kill him, but instead killed his friend. About 26 years in Japan, building his own empire, watching from a distance as Min-seok raised Jin-ho's biological son and never knew it. But it was what he revealed about Ji-woo that finally broke the careful facade she'd maintained. "You knew I was alive," Jin-ho said, looking at her with eyes that held decades of complicated feeling. "You've known for 15 years. Since that trip to Tokyo, remember? You were there for a charity auction, staying at the Grand Hyatt, and I was in the lobby bar. We saw each other. You didn't scream, didn't call security, didn't tell Min-seok. You just looked at me like you'd seen a ghost, which you had, and walked away." Ji-woo's composure finally cracked. "What was I supposed to do? You were supposed to be dead. I'd built a life, raised your son as Min-seok's, survived in a world that would have destroyed me if I'd been alone. Acknowledging you would have meant admitting everything, losing everything. So, you started stealing instead." Jin-ho's voice was almost gentle. "Building your exit fund, your insurance policy in case I came back and destroyed the life you'd built. You thought if you had enough money hidden away, you could run, disappear, take Hyun-woo and start over somewhere I couldn't find you." "Yes." Ji-woo looked at Min-seok, and for the first time since Naomi had met her, the Ice Queen looked actually afraid. "I never stopped loving you, Min-seok, but I never stopped fearing Jin-ho either. He's chaos, destruction, everything you're not, and I knew if he came back he'd tear apart everything we'd built." Min-seok had been silent through most of Jin-ho's revelations, his face grey and drawn, the tremors in his hands worse than Naomi had ever seen. But now he spoke, and his voice carried the weight of a man who'd built empires and watched them crumble. "You're dying too." He was looking at Jin-ho, and somehow Naomi knew it was true before Jin-ho confirmed it. The burns, they weren't just superficial. Internal damage, lungs, liver. "You're here because you're running out of time, same as me." Jin-ho's scarred face twisted into something that might have been a smile. "Lung cancer, stage 4. The doctors give me 4 months, maybe less. So yes, brother, we're both dying, both trying to set our affairs in order before the end. The difference is, you spent your last months reconciling with your wife. I'm spending mine claiming what's rightfully mine. Hyun-woo isn't property to be claimed. No, he's my son, and he deserves to know the truth about where he came from. About what he is." Jin-ho turned to Hyun-woo, who'd been silent through all of this, watching with those calculating eyes. "You've known I'm your father for years, but do you know why? Do you know the real reason I betrayed the family, sold secrets, became the monster your mother fled from?" Hyun-woo's voice was steady. "Tell me." "Because I couldn't have the things I wanted, couldn't be who I was in a family that demanded traditional roles. Your mother, I loved her, in my own broken way. But I loved Wei too. Loved men and women both. Loved power and submission, loved things that didn't fit the neat boxes our family required. So I rebelled, destroyed myself, destroyed others, and left you behind to inherit my chaos. The confession hung in the air. Hyunwoo's face was carefully blank, but Naomi saw his throat work as he swallowed hard. You think that excuses anything? That being closeted and damaged gives you permission to murder and betray and abandon your child? No, nothing excuses it. I'm telling you so you understand. You inherited my complications, my attraction to both control and surrender, my inability to fit neatly into categories. You've been fighting it, haven't you? Trying to figure out what you are, who you want, whether you're more like me or more like the man who raised you. Jinho's eyes were sad. You're both, and neither. You're Hyunwoo, and that's enough. If this family's dysfunction is breaking your heart, hit that like button and comment below. Can any of them come back from these revelations, or is this family beyond saving? The conversations spiraled into arguments about succession, about the empire, about who deserved what and who'd paid enough in blood and suffering. But Naomi stopped listening. She stood, knife still in hand, and walked to the window overlooking Seoul. The city stretched below, indifferent to the drama playing out 63 floors above. Her mother had died in this city, had been killed by the scarred man currently arguing about birthright and legacy, had been CIA, had been pregnant, had tried to protect her unborn daughter and failed. And now Naomi was pregnant, carrying a child conceived through manipulation, standing in the same house, drowning in the same secrets, faced with the same impossible choices. History repeating, or history offering a second chance. Enough. Min-seok's voice cut through the arguments. He stood, and despite the tremors, despite the illness eating him from the inside, he still commanded the room. Jinho, you want to claim your birthright? Fine. You have 4 months. I have 6. Let's see which of us survives long enough to matter. Hyunwoo, you're my son, his son, your own man. Choose your path. I won't force you. He turned to Jiwoo. And you. We'll discuss the embezzlement privately. But know this. I knew. Have known for 3 years. Taesung told me. I let you continue because I understood why you needed that insurance, why you needed to feel like you had control. I loved you enough to let you steal from me if it made you feel safe. Jiwoo's face crumpled, actual tears streaming down the Ice Queen's perfect face. You knew, and you never said anything. I was hoping you'd trust me enough to tell me yourself that our night of truth would include that confession, but you weren't ready. Maybe you'll never be ready, but I'm not leaving this world angry at you for trying to survive me. The grace in that moment, the forgiveness offered by a dying man to the woman who'd betrayed him in every way except the one that mattered most, broke something in the room. Even Jinho looked away, uncomfortable with the kind of love that transcended damage and deception. What about her? Jinho gestured to Naomi. Angela Carter's daughter, pregnant, dangerous, carrying evidence of everything. I saw that USB drive in your pocket, girl. What's your play? Whose side are you on? Every eye turned to Naomi. She pulled out the USB drive, held it up so they could all see. This has evidence of the embezzlement, proof that could destroy Jiwoo and Jong-hoon. Bank records, transfers, dates, everything. She looked at Min-seok. I could give it to you. Let you decide what to do with it, or, she turned to Jinho, I could give it to you. Let you use it to discredit your brother, claim the empire for yourself, or, she closed her fist around it, I could destroy it. Let all of you figure out your own mess without me as a weapon. Or, Hyunwoo said quietly, you could keep it. Use it as insurance, the way my mother did with her hidden money. Protection. In case any of us decides you know too much and should join your mother in the river. What do you want, Miss Carter? Min-seok asked. Really want. Not survival. You've already proven you're good at that. What do you want for yourself and that baby you're carrying? Naomi thought about it. About her mother, dead at 26 for knowing too much. About the baby growing inside her that she hadn't chosen but was already trying to love. About Hyunwoo's dangerous attraction and Min Seok's vulnerable humanity and Jiwoo's ice-cold survival instinct. About Dr. Chen and his secrets and Tai Sung's impossible love and Soo-jin recording everything for leverage she didn't understand yet. I want the truth about my mother's investigation. All of it. Every file, every piece of evidence that still exists. I want to know what she was really after, what she found, why it was worth killing her. She looked at Jin-ho. And I want you to acknowledge what you did, not justify it, not explain it. Just acknowledge that you murdered a pregnant woman who was trying to protect her child. Say it out loud. Jin-ho met her gaze. I murdered Angela Carter. She was pregnant with you. She begged me to spare her baby. I killed her anyway because I was high and scared and 23 years old and too damaged to see another way out. I'm sorry. It doesn't fix anything. But I'm sorry. The apology was inadequate and too late and probably not even fully sincere. But it was something. An acknowledgement. A record that Soo-jin was probably capturing on her phone that would exist as proof that someone had finally said the truth out loud. I'll keep the USB drive, Naomi said, as insurance, as leverage, as proof that I'm not helpless in this house anymore. She looked at Min Seok. But I won't use it against you. Your reconciliation with Jiwoo is real. Flawed and complicated and built on 20 years of lies, but real. I won't destroy that. Not after I watched you beg for one honest night. Not after I saw what that vulnerability cost you. Min Seok nodded, understanding and gratitude in his eyes. But, Naomi continued, turning to Jiwoo, if you threaten me again, if you come near me or this baby with your poison or your manipulation or your Ice Queen control, I'll release everything. The embezzlement, the first wife's murder, all of it. And I'll make sure the world knows exactly what kind of monster wears designer handbook and calls it elegance. Jiwoo's smile was cold but genuine. Fair. We have an understanding then. Mutual assured destruction. Very civilized. The Mexican standoff dissolved into exhausted detente. Jin-ho took a room in the penthouse. There were plenty, and no one had the energy to argue about it. Dr. Chen treated both dying brothers, moving between them with the careful neutrality of someone who'd loved one and served the other and wasn't sure how to reconcile those feelings. Tai Sung and Jong-hoon continued their secret affair, now slightly less secret, but no less complicated. Soo-jin had enough recorded blackmail material to control everyone, which somehow made her the most dangerous person in the house despite being 16. And Naomi went back to being the maid. But not invisible, never invisible again. She served breakfast and cleaned rooms and carried secrets, but now everyone knew she carried them, knew she was armed with evidence and pregnant with possibility and far too dangerous to dismiss or eliminate. What do you think happens on Friday night? Drop your predictions in the comments below. Will Min Seok and Jiwoo's night of truth save their marriage or destroy it completely? And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the epilogue when we find out exactly how this impossible family survives. 3 months later, both brothers were dead. Min Seok first, peacefully in Jiwoo's arms after a final night of truth that no one else witnessed. Jin-ho 3 weeks after, his lungs finally giving out, with Dr. Chen holding his hand and Hyunwoo standing in the doorway, watching his biological father die the way his adopted father had, with someone who loved him bearing witness to the end. The empire fractured, reformed. Hyunwoo took control with Naomi at his side, not as a maid anymore but as an advisor, a partner. Someone who understood the darkness required to survive in that world because she'd been forged in the same fire. The baby was born healthy. A girl. DNA test showed the father was one of Jiwoo's recruiters, exactly as promised. A man who'd disappeared into nothing, who'd never be found, who'd served his purpose and been erased. Naomi named her Angela, for the mother she'd barely known but was learning to understand, for the second chances and the cycles that could be broken if you fought hard enough. Ji-woo took her embezzled millions and disappeared. Not running, choosing. She sent postcards from various cities, never staying long enough to be found, living the life of freedom she'd been building toward for decades. Soo-jin went with her, mother and daughter finally building something honest out of the ruins of their beautiful lies. Dr. Chas Chen stayed, opened a private practice that catered to people with unusual needs, unusual secrets, unusual ways of expressing themselves. He was happy finally. Out of the shadows, authentic in his strangeness. Tae-sung and Jong-hoon moved to Thailand, opened a beach bar, sent photos of sunsets and smiles that suggested healing was possible, even for people as damaged as they'd been. And Naomi stood on the balcony of the penthouse, 63 floors above Seoul, daughter in her arms, USB drive still hidden as insurance, and thought about the night she'd overheard Min-seok begging Ji-woo for one honest moment. Just one night, please. That had been the beginning. The crack in the armor that had let her see the humanity underneath the power. The vulnerability that had made her care when she should have stayed distant. One night of truth hadn't saved their marriage, but it had saved something. Had created space for honesty in a house built on lies. Had shown that even the most powerful people were just broken humans trying to love and survive and matter before the darkness claimed them. Your grandmother was a spy, Naomi whispered to baby Angela. Your grandmother's killer was a chaos demon who died apologizing. Your adopted uncle was raised by his biological uncle thinking he was his father. And your mother, she smiled, sad and fierce and finally free. Your mother survived it all. Which means you will too, because we're Carter women. And we don't stay invisible. Not anymore. The city lights blazed below, beautiful and indifferent and eternal. And somewhere in that sprawl of neon and ambition, other powerful men were making mistakes. Other women were witnessing vulnerabilities they shouldn't see. Other secrets were being born that would take decades to unravel. But tonight, Naomi Carter held her daughter and watched the sunrise and knew she'd survived the house that had killed her mother, had broken the cycle, had turned witnessing into power and silence into choice. Some doors lock behind you, but sometimes you find the key. Sometimes you kick the door down, and sometimes you burn the whole house down and build something better from the ashes. Naomi had chosen the third option, and in the ruins of the Ryu family empire, she was building something new, something honest, something hers. One night of truth had started everything, but it was all the mornings after, all the choices to keep being honest, even when lies were easier, that actually changed the world. And as Seoul woke up to another day of ambition and destruction and beautiful, terrible humanity, Naomi Carter stood 63 floors above it all, finally visible, finally free, finally home. The end. They say some stories end with justice, some with revenge, some with love conquering all the darkness. This story ended with survival, with a woman who came to Seoul invisible and left it powerful, with a family that destroyed itself trying to hide the truth and somehow found fragments of redemption in the ruins. Min-seok got his honest night, Ji-woo got her freedom, Hyun-woo got his identity. And Naomi Carter, daughter of Angela Carter, mother of Angela Carter, got what her mother never did. She got to live, she got to choose, she got to break the cycle that had been waiting 26 years to close around her throat. In a city of 10 million people, in a house built on blood and secrets and beautiful lies, one woman heard a powerful man beg for one honest night. And that moment, that single act of witnessing vulnerability, changed everything. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do in a world built on lies is tell the truth. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do when you're invisible is choose to be seen. Naomi Carter chose both, and she survived. If you made it all the way to the end of this twisted family saga, thank you for listening. Drop a comment and let me know what you thought. Did Naomi make the right choices? Who was your favorite character? What shocked you the most? And don't forget to subscribe because there are more dark, compelling stories coming that you won't want to miss. This has been The Silent Witness, Just One Night. Remember, some doors lock behind you, but the strongest people learn to pick locks, kick down doors, and build entirely new houses when the old ones try to trap them. Stay dangerous, stay visible, stay free.